What actually makes a great data engineer these days? With AI lowering the barrier of entry for super complex and technical topics, being excellent on those aspects simply isn't enough anymore to be a great data engineer. Obviously, it is still a very necessary skill, something foundational that you should have, but relying just on that won't make you stand out anymore. And so that's why today I want to talk to you about the new golden skill for data engineer, which is simply communication. But actually, before you just click off the video and consider that you got all of the information that I'm gonna provide, I will actually break down precise things you can work on regarding communication and which aspects of communications are actually necessary. Because our role is shifting, we are now often required to be in more meetings, to talk to more people, to clearly explain what we do. So you need to be able to communicate to any type of audience. And what I mean by any type of audience is salespeople, marketing people, other very technical people like software engineers or data analysts. But no matter the level of technicality of the person in front of you, you need to be able to adapt your language and the way you explain things to the level of this person on a technical scale. Basically, think of it like those videos that are like one scientist explaining very complex stuff to like a 7-year-old. You need to be able to do that, but you also need to be able to someone on the same level as you of technical knowledge, be able to explain clearly what you do, what you work on, and every level in between, which might seem obvious, but actually in my experience talking with other very technical people, piece of cake, no one has any trouble with that. But trying to simplify concepts that to us are just second nature by now is sometimes very hard. For instance, people that barely even know what data really means, or what the role of a data engineer even is, or what a pipeline is, ETL, databases, columns, table, things like that. You need to be able to explain your work without relying on those very technical words. To practice that, it's very simple. Just try to explain to your friends or a partner or even your grandma what you work on. And if you can make them understand, even people that are maybe outside of your company, so don't even have the company knowledge of what you do, if you can make them understand what your work is, then you'd have no issues explaining it within your company. The second thing you need to be able to communicate on is showing the value that you actually bring to the company. This means not just explaining your work in a very descriptive, matter-of-fact way, but you need to actually talk about the impact of your work on the whole company level and on other fields for the clients, things like that, and the consequences of the things that you build, what they bring and how they bring value to everyone else. This is also a bit of a complicated one, at least in my experience. I see other data engineers struggle with that because we spend a lot of time looking at small technical details that sometimes it's a bit hard to pull out and take a look at the bigger picture of what we're building and what the goal and the value and the reason behind what we're building is. And for that, a very simple way to practice is try to remind yourself whenever you're working on something super technical and haven't taken, a bit of a step back in a while, try to just remember what this will change on a product level or for a client, something like that. Try to put yourself in the user's shoes, basically, so that you can translate what the very complex changes that you made, what they will actually impact on the final product or the project itself. This third one is not hard to understand, or you don't really need any practice in how to express it, but it's about being transparent with your progress and your blockers. That one is just hard psychologically to do. It's really hard to share your failures with other or things that are, slower than you were expecting, but it's actually super, super important. And in my experience, being able to talk about those scary parts of a project, so things that are, not going your way, or that, took a bit more time than you were expecting, or that you were initially planning on, than you communicated at the start of a project. This really makes you gain trust, and other will actually be able to, probably ask you less and less over time what's the progress on things, if you're able to proactively communicate about it and be transparent and say, look, those are some mistakes I made, or some time was lost here. Don't worry, I'm fixing it, I'm working on it. But they don't just see some progress that is stalling but doesn't align with the discourse that you're serving them. And it's really important to have trust, because now, since AI can do a lot of technical things that used to be only up to data engineers, it's really important to be kind of this open and transparent person, because for instance, that is something famously right now a lot of like LLMs are kind of bad at, is like they keep making mistakes and not being like very obvious about it unless you point out to them that they made a mistake. So if you're as a human being able to do that, that gives you a competitive advantage against an AI, because they will have more trust in you than in the LLM, which is what you should aim for. And I think a good practice for that is simply whenever you stumble upon like a mistake that you made, or a bit of like a slow progress on something, try to like put, I don't know, like a reminder to actually mention it whenever you have a stand-up or any like progress update that you need to share. Because the same way we have the habit of writing down things that we actually did, it's important to start also writing down and like keeping track of things that didn't go the way they were supposed to, so that you can actually remember to bring them up, because it's kind of very easy to put our mistakes and our failures at the back of our mind so that they don't actually get brought up during meetings, but it is important to actually do that. And this final one is a bit more of a holistic one, but I want you to be able to share your vision, to communicate your vision, what motivates you. You're not just someone who's writing code, building pipelines. You actually have a vision, something that you're building towards. And it's very important that others are aware of that and can understand where you're going. Because first of all, if there's any misalignment between their vision and your vision when you're working on the same project, great way to find that out and actually try to build one vision together. But it's also a great way to make yourself seem very valuable, because you're more than just someone that is able to write code and do like technical stuff that like no one really understands, but that's fine, you do that, but you don't go like beyond that. But actually you probably do when you write code. I'm sure it's very intentional, and you have your own approach to problems and your own strategies on how to come up with solutions, and that's very important that others are aware of that, especially other non-technical people. And that's why that point is the last, because I think that to get to that point you actually need to work on the like 3 previous points that I mentioned about communication. Because if you already do those 3 previous points, then that last one is kind of building everything and like bringing it together into one cohesive vision that you're working on. Think of it as some sort of like self-branding. You're kind of branding your work as an engineer. You have a way to do things, an approach, and then you will actually go from, just a technical executive to someone that people go to for specific problems when they need specific ways or like a new point of view on how to approach a problem. They will also go to you for that, which is what you're trying to do to make yourself visible, useful, and make sure you are more than just a code executor. So to wrap it all up, until very recently, data engineers were able to rely solely on their technical capabilities, and proving that they had a very strong technical knowledge was enough to get by and just, keep progressing. But now it requires more and a bit less of what I call work in the shadow approach, because AI put an end to it. Your biggest advantage as a human is your ability to communicate and connect with others. And that's why even as a data engineer, you need to work on this skill.